guys know what this is? What do you think?
Coral?
It is coral, and coral grows in the ocean. This is actually called staghorn coral. Can you think of why it might be called staghorn coral?
Because it's made of, looks like stone, it's hard.
It is hard. It is. Yes, Georgia.
Like stags, they
Like-
have antlers and stuff.
Yes. Yes, and so 5th grade has let me borrow this. This was part of an aquarium that belonged to a teacher once upon a time. Afterwards, you guys can come up if you would be careful with it. It's not terribly fragile, but I wouldn't want to break it. You can see where the little tiny creatures that make up the coral, that build the shells, live inside there. Yes, Lily?
It's dead because it's has no color in it.
Correct, because living coral has colors and has creatures alive and would need to be in the water, and this is not, and it has turned white because it has died. Yes, is there a question about the coral? Yes.
So it was alive. But
It had creatures living in it. This is their shell that they create. Yes.
I was gonna say that. So when they when they don't change colors, they'll just change to white. Like
They-
if they're out of the water, they'll
They
just,
do, and it's important because our book is about the coral reefs, and it's called The Brilliant Deep, Rebuilding the World's Coral Reefs. It's by Kate Mesner. Yes.
So wait, how long ago to be out to die? Like we didn't take out a while for like 1 second it did.
No, I think it can last. I don't know that much. We'd have to do some research because I don't know what the lifespan of the little coral creature. I don't know very much about them except that they make coral that is in the ocean, and they build together to form a coral reef, and that is important for the fish in the ocean and the plants because it creates a very special environment. Yes, Miley.
Like, would it go lighter than what it already looks like, or stay that way?
It would stay white once it was dead. So it doesn't have anything living inside of it anymore that would make it change colors. Yes.
Once, me and my friend went to the ocean, and so we were underneath the water, and we could see like the coral and everything, and it was beautiful.
Nice. It is beautiful. I haven't gotten to see it in the ocean, but I'd like to one day. That looks really gorgeous.
I've got some shells and coral that I found there.
Nice. So the story starts out, and it says, it starts with one. One night after a full moon, the coral begins to spawn, releasing first one and then millions of tiny lives until the water swirls like a snow globe. Now some will be food for hungry fish. Others will be washed into the deep sea. And some will drift in the currents until they come to rest not too deep on the ocean floor. If one is lucky, it will land in just the right place where it can grow. And this one will begin to build a coral reef. Ken Niedermeyer grew up near the Florida Kennedy Space Center, watching America race to the moon. Before men took off in rockets, his father worked for NASA as an engineer. So Ken watched as his father's team sent unmanned rockets like Little Joe, Redstone, and Atlas toward the stars. Then followed the astronauts, Alan Shepard and John Glenn. It seemed like just about anything might be possible if you put your mind to it. But Ken's dreams weren't in the stars. He loved the ocean. He watched TV shows about the underwater explorer named Jacques Cousteau. He went to the beach as often as he could. He loved swimming far out into the world of angelfish and starfish. The reefs of the Florida Keys teemed with life. They were painted the ocean floor red and gold. How could the reefs grow so large? And what made all the different colors and shapes? How could such tiny creatures build such elaborate homes? Ken learned to scuba dive, and he began collecting fish and shells to study at home. At one point, he had 30 aquariums in his bedroom.
Wow.
That is a lot of aquariums. But his favorite place on Earth was always out on the reef until something began to change. One summer, it was hotter than the rest, and Ken noticed that the corals were losing their color. Then there weren't as many fish. So we see the difference between the live reef and the reef that's dying. The sea urchins had started to die. They're the gardeners of the tiny reef, the tiny groundskeepers that control the algae. But Ken didn't know that at the time. Even scientists didn't understand what an important role the sea urchins played until they were gone. You guys were learning about this. What science project are you all working on that talks about the importance of each creature? Yes?
A food web?
Yeah, the food webs and food chains. You didn't understand that the sea urchins played a key role in the environment that the coral reefs had. And when they weren't there to eat the algae grew too much and it started to kill off the coral. Ken watched as his favorite place in the world began to fade away. The reefs were dying and it seemed like there was nothing he could do to save them. Until one day. By then, Ken was grown up, and he operated a rock farm in the Florida Keys. What is a rock farm, you wonder? Well, it's important to say that rocks aren't alive. You got that? You with me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Instead, the rocks get covered with algae and mollusks and sponges and other invertebrate creatures that are alive. Now, if you are a rock farmer, you put rocks into the ocean, and you wait for things to come and live on them. And then you harvest the rocks. This seems like the type of farming I could do. I'm not very good with plant farming. I think it says all you need to do to be a rock farmer is have patience and access to the ocean. Now, the rocks are important for aquariums because they turn poisons like ammonias and other nitrates into harmless compounds, and it keeps the water safer and healthier, both in the ocean and in the aquariums, for everything that lives in it. Now, at Ken's Rock Farm, one moonlit night, there was a nearby coral colony. A few of those delicate lives found their way onto Ken's rocks and began to grow staghorn coral. Now, staghorn coral are protected. It's illegal to take them from the ocean floor. But these weren't taken illegally. These were already dead. And they were acquired long ago, possibly even before they were protected. Scout song. I think I'm not supposed to cross my fingers. Mm-hmm. But the law says that if the coral colony grows on the live rock farm, the owner can't keep it. So Ken could have sold that coral for aquariums, but instead he and his daughter, who was also a grown-up at the time, had a great idea. They conducted their own science experiment. They cut off a little bit of the coral and attached it to rocks. And little by little, that coral began to grow. Now, what would happen if somebody grew that coral colony near the dying reef? Would it grow? Could the colony help rebuild the coral reefs? Could a reef come back to life? Ken made plans to go out to the reef that he'd loved diving at as a kid. He selected some coral colonies, got his scuba gear in his boat, and set out to the reef. One hopeful dive and one optimistic science experiment. 6 coral colonies, each one the size of a hand, with fingers outstretched, were glued onto the limestone surface where the reef had once flourished, but was now bleached and barren. Would they grow? Ken and his friends came back to check, and every month the coral grew a little bigger. It was too soon to know if it would recover, but it was a good beginning. Ken started a group called the Coral Restoration Foundation, an army of volunteers that made it their mission to restore the coral reefs. They hung bits of coral on special underwater trees where the coral could grow. Once the coral was big enough, they took these special coral trees out to where the reefs were. And then they went to their new home when the coral would build itself. The volunteers took great care with the homecoming. They searched for just the right spot, the place where each coral colony can hold on once it's grown large enough. The divers scraped off any algae. They used chipping hammers, scraping and banging to get the surface clean and smooth. And then with a dollop of epoxy, just glue, just the size of a Hershey's Kiss, it said, they would attach the coral onto the rock, piece by piece, arm by arm, and hope that they would keep growing. Today, the transplants are not only surviving, but they also reproduce on their own. Ken's group has planted tens of thousands of coral colonies on the reefs in the Florida Keys. And now he works with other countries and other people to teach them how to save their coral reefs too. I'll get to your questions in just a minute. Tonight, the moon will be full and bright, and the coral may spawn. And if even one tiny life lands in just the right spot, a new colony will begin to grow. And then another, and then another, and then another. But it all starts with just one. Thank you.